Welcome to the 16th chapter of the book of Exodus. This chapter is about the wife of Abram and the maidservant Hagar, Sarah and Hagar. Begins, Sarah they gini Avram, uk etiken avto. And Sarah the gini, gynecology being the derivative, or this gini, the derivative, the wife of Abram, bore not to him. In they avti paidhiski, Egyptia, onoma agar. But there was to her a maidservant, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Egypti. So apparently when Abram was in Egypt, came back to Canaan, picked up some servants, slaves from Egypt. Verse 2, Ipe they Sarah pros Avram, and Sarah said to Abram, Idhu, sineclase me, Kyrios to me tiktin. Behold, the Lord, using the word Kyrios, the tetragrammaton in the Hebrew, the name, title, close me up to not bear. So she is acknowledging who Lord is, that he is in control of things. He's God. Then she continues, Iselthe un prostin paidhiskin mu. Enter then to my maidservant, Ina technopi some ex avtis. Enter then to my maidservant, that I may produce children from her. And here's the fatal flaw. She acknowledging and knowing who the Lord is and doing what he says are two different things. Here she's coming up with her own solution to the problem of having Abram go to the maidservant, which he apparently had done before with a woman from Damascus and had a son who mentions his name earlier. And that I may produce children from her. So thinking about herself and the solution. Epikuse they Avram, and Abram obeyed. Tis phonis Saras. Who does this remind us of? Adam. Heeding the voice of his wife. And so the phonis is the voice. Phone is a derivative. So he listens to her, even though we're told that the beginning was male and female. No bigamy was to be, but it came into being anyway. Then 3, Ke lavusa igini Avram, Agar, tin Egyptian, tiniaftis paidhiskin. And the wife of Abram, having taken Hagar the Egyptian, her maidservant, meta dheka eti to ikise Avram in Gi Canaan, after 10 decade years of living with Abram in the land of Canaan, Ke edoken aftin to Avram andri aftis avto gineka. And she gave to Abram, her husband, to him for wife. So it wasn't a concubine. It mentions here for wife. Sarah is not following what the commands of God, but coming up again with her solution. In verse 4, Ke isilthe pros Agar, and he entered to Hagar. Ke sinelave, and she conceived. Ke ethan oti in gastri, eki, ke iti masti I kiria enantion aftis. So Hagar did what her lady said, and had this child in the gastri, in the womb, gastric, the belly, the derivative. And that she saw that the lady was dishonored, Sarah, before her. This is something I suppose women would understand more than a man, that now this man is going to spend, apparently in the eyes of Sarah, more time or effort and care towards this other woman. In verse 5, Ipe they Sarah pros Avram, and Sarah said to Abram, adikume exu. I am being wrong because of you. Now she's laying the blame on Abram, even though she was the one that made up the whole situation to have this happen. And now she's claiming to be wrong, blaming Abram. Ego dedokatin paidiskin mu iston kolpon su. I gave my maidservant to your bosom. Idusas they oti in gastri eki iti masthin enantian aftis. And seeing that she had a child in the gastri, in the womb, I was dishonored before her. Now, whether Hagar actually did anything or was in Sarah's mind, we can only imagine. Krine o theos anameson emu kesu. May God judge, theos, theology, the derivative, between me and you. Well, that's what she's saying, but I'm sure her reasoning is him to judge what she would like the situation, the outcome to be. Verse 16, Ipe de Avram prosaran, and Abram said to Sarah, Idu, I paidiski su ente sersi su. Behold, your maidservant is in your hands. Hersi, Cairo, is a hand, manipulating with a hand, the chiropractor. Behold, the maidservant is in your hands. Abram's giving it over to her will, to Sarah's will, not this maidservant. Kro afti os an si ariston e. Treat her however might be pleasing to you. Now here's a man who earlier pawned his wife off in Egypt as his sister, and now he's letting this woman do what she wants, maybe out of guilt of what happened earlier. It's hard to say, but the result was Ke'akakosan aftin Sarah, and Sarah maltreated her. So we see these negative things in these people, things that they did, and we wonder why God has decided to show himself to these people, but yet that's exactly what's happening in this early time. Ke apedra apo prosopu aftis, and she ran away from her face. There's the she and the her, and well, we know she is Hagar and her is Sarah, but it gets to be kind of difficult with these pronouns floating all over. Verse 7, Evre they aftin angelos kiriou epitis pigis tu idatos enti erimo. And the angel of the Lord found her upon the spring of water in the wilderness. And we'll go here a little bit later where we see this is actually God. An angelos, the word means a messenger. A messenger can be whoever, I guess, suppose God wants the message to go through. The early Hebrew thought was that whenever God, who was way above human understanding and form, decided to communicate with man, instead of a vibration of a word coming out, that he actually made a being in the form of an angelos, an angel, a messenger, what it actually means. You could use messenger in all these places instead of angelos, or an angel. Sometimes you have to determine it through the context. Anyway, the angel of the Lord found her upon the spring of water in the eremo, the wilderness, a hermit, upon the land in the way of Shur. And Shur is on the way back into Egypt. It's down here, the desert of Shur. So this is where Hagar has fled, going back to her home, apparently in Egypt.